Welcome everybody joining us for match number 2 of SPL. My name is Valdez. With me tonight is Wolf.
Look at that guy down there in the camera shot who had a headset, listened to our commentary. What a great guy. Shout out to that guy. I hope you got it working and you can hear me. Going into the second match, Jin Hair Green Wings versus Afreeca Freaks. Could be another match where everyone's, well, I mean, it is a match that everyone is saying is one side, but it could be another close one if we have some upsets. Anything can happen in best of ones.
Yeah, I mean, just to start it off, Rogue hasn't been the most successful here in Pro League, although he's slowly beginning to show us some new cool builds to snipe his opponents. But KeeN, you know, he's been able to come out from time to time and take out big players. He took out Stats in the playoffs, you know, in the one game that they were able to win. You know, it's possible that we have more upsets, of course.
Maru, man, looking so powerful right now. SOS as well, playing very well. And the new pickup, KeeN, welcome to the team, buddy. That one got announced just before the round 2 ended. For the way rosters work, by the way, guys, rosters can happen between, roster swaps can happen between rounds. Once the round starts, the rosters are locked. So that's why sometimes when you see a player join the team, they can't play until the round starts.
Yep, and that's why we could have KeeN playing in round 2. We haven't had him just yet. Nice leather jacket on that generic coach there. We were seeing him for a bit. Looking pretty suave.
Yeah, very handsome.
Yeah, looking at this lineup here also, Cure, another guy that you have to mention, getting out of his GSL group. I think he defeated Sue to get through. So, I mean, that's pretty big. I mean, Cure's looking better and better nowadays.
Yep, behind us we're taking a look at the Afreeca roster. For some reason we aren't looking at that.
It's over there.
But, okay, there we go. No notable changes here. DRG Ling was picked up earlier this year. He's an amateur player, a big fan of Dongregu himself, who used to be, you know, a big MVP player. And, you know, will we see DRG Ling this round? Probably not very often, especially not in a match like this.
Yeah, they need their big hitters to take down the semi-finalists, or rather the second place team from round number 1 in Jin Air. You know, Rogue, Cure, Maru, and SOS are names that you've been seeing for a very long time. It's their top 4. They are not pulling any punches this time around, even against Afreeca. And Afreeca's been doing better themselves. You know, they actually made it into the playoffs, getting the 3-0 over MVP and just barely qualify. I mean, they didn't have the easiest playoffs in the world, having to go up against, I think it was KT.
That's right. You were mentioning the stats game as well. I mean, that was a decent performance out of them. I think KT's lineup is a bit weak when it comes to the all-kill format. I've talked about this a lot. I mean, it's obviously very strong. They did, you know, win that first match versus the Freaks, but I think that Afreeca is a team that is here to stay, and we'll be doing much better here. Well, I mean, not much better, but at least as well as it did last round in round 2. As you mentioned, Rogue not being as dominant this season so far. 4-2 still. If you look at the Pro League record of KeeN, he was a GSTL monster, but as soon as he joined Kespa teams, he hasn't been as successful. 10-22, a pretty tough record to come back from.
Yeah, at least for this season, he is positive, 2-1, and he did also get that 1 win and 1 loss in the playoffs, so I guess 3-2 overall, if you're counting all the stats. So looking a bit better as time goes on. I mean, he didn't have the most impressive performances last year, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. I think he just wants to wipe clean his prime record. Moving out of there. Now going on to the Freaks. 7-0, the prediction here for Rogue versus KeeN. KeeN could take an upset here, but it's just hard to root for him when it comes to predictions. You know, it's just very unlikely. Statistically, he's 1-7 versus Rogue in head-to-head.
Especially Rogue, a huge hitter for Pro League. Let's jump into game number 1 right now, guys, though. Rogue versus KeeN. Well, we got a little bit of a delay here, guys. About to jump into that game, though. The countdown has started. It is going to be on Lerilak Crest, by the way. A very fun TVZ map, in my opinion.
Yeah, mine as well. Looks like these players just needed a little bit more time before we actually finally jump into this one. And it looks like we have gotten to that point right now. So Rogue versus KeeN. Let's start game number 1.
Up in the top left, in the green, the Zerg player from the Jin Air Green Wings, it is Rogue.
And his opponent to the bottom right in purple is KeeN. Give big shout-outs to everybody who stays up in the middle of the night. And even shout-outs to you guys like in Australia who are just, you know, it's like a pretty normal time for you to watch
you're just like enjoying it with your dinner, you know?
Yeah. But for those of you guys who watch the VODs, or maybe you're not able to like catch every single match and you're trying to find like good ways to stay updated on what's happening, I recommend following the Twitter Starcraft Esport. It posts updates like literally any esport match that's happening with Starcraft. There's a guy on there, he's updating it all the time, real-time updates. You may want to mute it if you like want to watch the VODs or something and you're scared you're going to get spoiled, because they will post every result, period. But I wanted to give this Twitter account some love because the guys working behind it have really worked hard to make sure there are live tweets for people at work, people who can't watch live. And I think that's something that really should be highlighted more, this community effort to bring these updates even at this time zone for Pro League, Star League, and GSL.
Yeah. And shout out to that one Rogue fan who's like, no, I'm just going to watch Rogue. Or I want to learn how to play CVT. You're just joining us for this one game. Shout outs to you too. We love all of our viewers here at Pro League.
It's just, you know, something that we've all kind of experienced, right? Being fans of Korean esports. You, before you moved here, staying up late. Myself as well, watching the GSL. I know that feeling. I know that one guy out there is probably like, got a paper due tomorrow and he's working on it on his second monitor. You know, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, there's definitely that one guy out there for
There's probably like at least like 6 guys. There's like 6.5 guys.
Yeah.
One guy's paper is due in 2 days, but he's working on it, you know.
Shout outs to him because that's earlier than I ever did any of my papers.
Yeah. Me too, man.
I think I was like you were doing it like last minute, 2 a.m. while watching.
I was watching the GSL. I was drinking
time.
like way too much coffee and soda. And then sometimes I went to bed and wrote the professor and told him the truth. The truth is, professor, is I was just too sick, but I will email it to you by the end of the day.
Yeah, of course.
Please understand. Well, a little bit of Reaper harass here. Nice Spore cancel to keep it alive, and really good lane control. Ends up losing 2 there at the end, but the initial lane control was very nice.
Yeah, the mine from the Reaper actually out of KeeN was really on point. So it did that extra bit of damage that made it harder to keep those 2 lings alive. But even so, keeping 2 lings alive after getting hit by the mine is quite nice.
Overlord speed on the way here for Rogue. This has kind of become the standard. It was growing in popularity for a while, but now, especially because drop overlords are so powerful, it's just such an important upgrade to have in this matchup, to see what your opponent's up to and then perhaps drop and harass him.
All the best Zergs in Korea are doing it. We see it out of Su, we see it out of Solar, we see it out of Dark, and now Rogue. It's like, okay, I mean, I think what you said is right. It hits the nail right on the head because it makes you so safe earlier on. You can scout everything. You just make sure you can save your overlords easier too, so that you have them out on the map for longer. And you can also use them for drops a little bit later on. So definitely a cool note there. You may want to start adding that into your games if you're more of a lower level Zerg out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it also means that when you scout, your overlord always gets away. Like, look at this.
Yep.
If it was a slow overlord, yeah, I would have seen, okay, no tech lab on the star report. He's doing a drop-oriented play, but wouldn't have been able to escape. He also sees that it's not a tank opener, so he knows that he's up against a drop that's going to be probably more Widow Mine and Marine-oriented. Tech lab only just now being started. He has spores coming up for safety. And, you know, the overlord can always pop back in to get the second scout as well. Yeah. The third base is coming up here for Rogue right now, and a Liberator on the way for KeeN.
Yeah. I think I've seen KeeN do this build before, where he just goes for the, I think it's 6 Marines in the Widow Mine that get into that medevac, and he follows up with the Reaper, and or rather the Liberator, and he gets a tank out behind this. So just going to put a bit of pressure onto that third base. I don't see much out here for Rogue. In fact, he only has 10 lings, and that's not going to be enough to defend against this. He's got 5 queens, but it's not connected to this third base over here, so he's just going to have to slowly walk him over. But this is already a nice bit of damage that's going down onto this hatchery.
It also gives him a decent amount of scouting as well. Oh, that Widowmine shot could be amazing. Ooh. There it is, and he does save it as well.
Really clean from KeeN. He's looking good so far, man. Builds on points.
Yeah.
Nice little drop there. Comes in again. with the Reaper, just does a bit of damage, you know, tries to get some scanning information in the back of the natural. Does go down, of course, but it did its job already.
Because he went for somewhat of a risky 3cc build, the scouting that he gets of the Lings and seeing how quick of a response and what kind of response Rogue has will tell him if Nidus is possible. Even though he didn't even like go scout the lair, he sees these Lings, he's like, okay, I know what's going on. I'm not needing to worry about Nidus right now. I'm not needing to worry about some sort of early push. I can just take that third CC. He's even lowered it all the way down to that location right now. Yeah. All this scan, or rather, all this creep clear too with the scan. Very powerful.
He's going to try to unburrow here and get out of there. Nice job even saving the Liberator after cleaning up all of that creep and putting on that pressure to take his third base at the same time. You know, lots of Terrans doing the tank evac kind of build so far, but KeeN mixing it up, and I kind of like the way it's been working so far. He can follow up with the tank evac move if he wants to from here on out.
Sure. Upgrades coming up much faster for Rogue, which is again becoming a trend in this matchup to rush out those 2 Evo chambers, which works really well when you want to go into Ultralisk comps. Look at this, Infestation Pit coming up. This is starting to look really similar to what we just saw from Dark on Overgrowth. You get a fast Infestation Pit, you use the synergy between the fungal growths and the corrosive bile to survive to get that fast hive. And it's a build that kind of just leads into itself because you need the Infestation Pit to get the hive anyways. You get some infestors out. You only commit to pathogen glands, just a few infestors to keep your units alive, to stop any pushing across the map.
It's really just like a catch-all build, you know, because you make enough roaches with the +1 attack and obviously the armor to just fight with the Terran while he's on 1-1-2, and then you transition into melee upgrades. You get the infestors with the roaches to stay alive, and the Ravagers, of course, as you were talking about, and then you eventually go into hive tech. So it's just like that safe build. It's going to work really, really well on a map like this too. That's very big. It's going to take a while for KeeN to really put on a lot of pressure against this.
And you've already scouted, in this case with your Overlord speed, that KeeN is playing greedy. He's going double Engineering Bay. He's got a fast, lifted, and landed third CC. He can get the hive out quickly. 3 infestors coming up here. He's already moving into those Ultralisk upgrades after the +1 for the roaches. He's even taking a greedy 4th himself. Which, you know, I say greedy, but against other builds it would be. In this case, it's very safe because he's scouted what he's up against. He's got his creep connecting all of his bases. He has so much vision. Look at his Overlord spread, even like up at the top of the map. He's not afraid of anything, and I do like this style because Ultras are just so powerful. I could hear Nathanius crying all the way across the ocean.
I'm sure Terrans across the world were crying about that last one from Dark, seeing how good Ultralisk are nowadays. And, you know, this is interesting. KeeN, I mean, he's playing this super greedy game. He's also going for ship weapons this early on. He doesn't even have, like, that many Vikings. He's getting 2 Liberators at a time, but he's easily going to be able to deal with any Muta play, obviously. But then Vikings, perhaps, later on to deal with some of the air army that could come out of the Zerg will also be nice. And getting that upgrade this early shows a lot of foresight.
Looks like KeeN wants to snipe 3 queens. He will get all 3 of them and escape. So nicely done. Those queens, of course, were spreading so much creep, but even with the snipes, the tumors are still alive, and he's now actually spreading the creep almost down the ramp on the center of the map. That vision control will be his. A Baneling Nest being added so late to the game, and
wow.
With the meta that we've settled on here in TVZ, this is okay. Remember when Bjorn was playing in Star League, when people were getting these Baneling Nests this late? They died to these sneaky timing pushes that players like Bjorn, Alive, were pulling out in this matchup. But now, as things slow down, you can keep that Baneling Nest until this late. You don't need to get Baneling speed. You're actually just going to defend with Creep, Infestors, and Ravagers.
Yeah, it's cool to see how the meta has evolved already in Legacy of the Void in this matchup. This matchup has always been pretty, you know, standard. Uh-oh, a bunch of Lings are going to get caught out here for free. Kind of a misstep there, I suppose, from Rogue, having them just out there.
Oh, this
nice placements, though, on the on the Spore Crawlers.
Yeah, this is going to accomplish nothing. That was kind of crazy. That Spore Crawler placement, very well practiced, no doubt, from Rogue. Finally, some creep cleared up here towards where Rogue may want to take his 5th base, but the middle of the map is still thick as hell. And look at this. Here we go. Potential for fungal synergy here. Gonna kill 2 Liberators, and that's just the beginning.
Gets those essentially for free. Oh, a huge run by and too late on the lift. There's just so many Lings coming in here, and Adrenal Lance is about to finish up too with that hide.
Oh, it's just going to be so much more powerful, those Lings. More corrosive vials drop down here, and even without fungals doing a lot of damage to those Marines. Splitting against this now is KeeN, who comes in. He is maxed out. We need to see some fungals. He actually has such a nice split here, even on the creep.
That is huge, and that is Rogue's fourth base, rather, too. And he may just be able to snipe it. Rogue is just going to have to give this up and play 3-base Hive Zerg here.
Yeah, he actually only had one Ultralisk out this entire time. Another one's about to pop. I think he's about to hit his, I think that's going to be his third Ultra, if I'm not mistaken. But none of those were ready just yet. KeeN is pre-splitting. He's finally able to hit this area where all the creep is getting removed. And this is a bit different than what Gumiho did. Gumiho committed to all those Hellions, the Banshees, for example. This is a much more powerful armor than what Dark faced last game with the same kind of build.
Yeah, now look at this. Rogue kind of caught at the top of his ramp. One Liberator doing nicely, and the split on the tanks is so good, too. He's going to try to break down the ramp now, but look at this concave. Will it be enough? I'm not so sure. Look at the reinforcements coming in, though.
A lot of Ultras coming down here. KeeN, not with a ton of army here, just going to kite back as best as he can with the units that can't be picked up by medevacs. Well, actually, he does have more medevacs. He could be lifting these, but he's not. Okay, there he goes. A bit delayed there. Yeah. For some reason, I thought those were full because he just wasn't lifting.
Back at home, nicely done there on the cancel. He's just going to go back. He knows he has to defend here. That ultra timing, man, the second he got any ultras, he easily broke that defense, even though it looked so nice. You know, you had the concave out there, the Liberators in position. Well, you know, too many ultras coming out with Kite in this play.
People have been saying this for months now, even really since the beta, of just how powerful ultras are going to be in this matchup. And pro gamers have come out and said it, you know, Ultras are strong, but Terrans were dealing with them because they were doing so much damage. There were somebody's winning off timing pushes or going to pure Sky Terran to deal with it. You know, this may be starting to show us a little bit what maybe Maru was thinking on Sejong, what TY was thinking on Sejong, like this sort of, let's avoid fighting Ultras, let's fight the air battle. Because we're starting to see Zergs even rush on 3 bases, these Ultras out, and Terrans can't deal with it. They're not dealing with it. They're trying their best. Now we have KeeN going massively into the Liberations. He's now getting the Ghost Academy up. And, I mean, that's going to be his attempt to deal with it. He's not going to take the same route as Gumiho, going Marauders, Splits, and just pure, like, micro-based play.
Yeah, I think Ghosts are definitely the answer here. We've seen Terrans not mix it in all too much, but the snipes are great for the Ultras, and he can even EMP some of the Infestors that are being added into these compositions. 4 Infestors with full energy, that's 8 fungals. I mean, you have to deal with those somehow, too. You're not always going to have perfect splits, especially on a map like this where you can get this much creep spread, and it's so hard for the Terran to push it back. I mean, I love the idea of adding in a bunch of Ghosts. You get all your Liberators into position, it looks good, but the guy's got 17 Ravagers, and he just corrosive files them slowly and eventually pushes you back.
Yeah, I think nuke play, once we get to the super late game as well, can be a great harassment tool. You're always going to have that option. Even if it's just 1 nuke at a time on 1 silo off of 1 academy, you definitely find some damage. Speaking of finding some damage, again, the adrenal glands you mentioned here are going to big time come into play with these cracklings destroying that SCV line. 12 dead, and he's even going to grab some depots for his troubles.
Yeah, he can even come in here. There's no medevacs. He can trade against his bio decently. Look at that. Look at how much bio just went down.
I can just remake these if he wants to at home.
That's such a small investment for Rogue after getting the adrenal glands. Just go in there. It's like, what, 20, 30 lings, and you kill the entire 3rd base economy and a bunch of bio at the same time.
3-3 is finishing here for KeeN. He has a solid army, but engaging into these Ultras is going to be a challenge. He's trying to get more Ghosts into the mix. A lot of Banelings being added, and also Corruptors. Greater Spire hasn't happened yet, I believe. We're getting closer to that point if he wants to transition. I just opened the structure tab. It was so long across the screen I had to check and see if I could find it because, Rogue has so much stuff.
You can see the creep is coming on now towards inside the sensor tower. It's creeping up all the way towards KeeN's base. Again, this base has to be lifted. Small group of Lings and 1 Ultra will force that up. It looks like KeeN is going to try to go for this other base in the top right. At this point, now that the rocks are down, I think that'll even be easier to defend at this point.
Yeah, I think so. +1 armor coming out now for those Corruptors. 3-3 finished for Ultras. I have to beg, I feel like the situation begs the question of what will KeeN do to fight the Zerg army? The bank is starting to get real. 2,600, 1,400, 72 drones.
KeeN is supply blocked at 165 supply. he can't even make units right now. It's because of all those supply depots that went down at the third base. He's, doing little harassments like this with this Liberator, but he's got to do something big, I feel. He's got to take a really big fight, possibly with the Ghost, snipe a bunch of the Ultras, do something like that. But he's got to get his economy back online and somehow remax here.
He needs to build the ultimate army until he has a bank. If he loses even one fight to the Zerg, or even trades evenly, he's not going to win this game. He needs more. He needs more time. Doing this harass is starting to become effective, right? He's killed 15 drones in total between this little drop that runs in and the Liberators. So a little bit of an Overlord creep over here going on, being totally ignored by KeeN. He's trying to clear up some of this creep as well. It's one of the big powers that you have as a Zerg with your Ultras. Oh no.
There's nothing over here. Goodbye, Mules, at least.
And 6 SCVs with them.
Goodbye everything that was mining at that base, and it looks like Rogue is preparing for an attack. He might not even try to go for the mining bases because he has this one way, into the back door, essentially, of KeeN's base, and he's going to go for that.
Well, here we go. This Liberator here, all alone, does get taken out. Liberation Zone's going to push Rogue back. He did confirm that there was no base down here to the left of KeeN's main. We're just going to set up again for another engage. 3,000 minerals, 2,200 gas. With these run-bys, with the Banelings, he just has superior economy. He knows KeeN isn't even maxed out right now. And KeeN is just trying to mass Liberators. He wants to max on Liberators purely and like a few Widow Mines for some support on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he's already made 9 Ghosts, so he's kind of gotten that contingent of just a small number of Ghosts in there to deal with what I was saying before. Look at this, even just 4 Krakens coming in, doing that damage. Only 3 SCVs, but he's going to force a large portion of that army to come up there. And look at this, the Snipe's going down, getting a nice bit of damage, but those Ghosts are all alone.
They're all alone indeed. These Liberators are not set up. We need to set them up again. They're all clumped up here. This could be horrible. There's no fungals because of those EMPs, but Corrosive Biles could easily end these Liberators if he does go for those.
Here are the Corrosive Biles. They move out of position. And look at this, the base is even going down. There's no more mining. He's going for the repair, and I think he should be able to get it.
I think that's just game, right? Like he loses his planetary to the Ultras. The Ultras were not dealt with. Everything on the ground dies, everything. And the only thing that's left are Liberators that have nearly killed themselves. Half of them in the red, as you guys could see. And KeeN just drops Mules at another base. He's now half the supply of Rogue, who's morphing Banelings behind his minerals in plain sight.
And there's pretty much nothing he can do.
Yeah.
KeeN's like, I guess I'll try to kill you with Liberators. That's all he's got at this point.
Oh, Fungal's going down here. Corrosive Biles for the follow-up. Dropping in supply even further now is KeeN. There's enough Corruptors here with the support of the Infestors to end this game. There's the splits versus those Liberators, and that is going to be all she wrote here. 100 supply down.
GG Scans coming out, wants to see if he's taking any more bases. GG! Rogue will take game number 1 against KeeN.
Dominant performance. 3 base into the infestation pit, 4 bases high. Ultras control the mid game, builds a bank, builds the counters, and then just harasses his way to perfect domination there. KeeN never for a second in that game had control.
Yeah, I mean, he had a decent mid-game. I liked his idea, and he took out the 4th base, remember, but then once the Ultras came out, he just did not have an answer, to be honest. He did not have an answer. The back rocks got taken out. He lost his 3rd base. He was mining at a 4th. He tried to take another base that got consistently harassed, and just from there, that was when the tides turned for the Zerg.
Well, very easy first win here for Jin Air Green Wings before we go into game number 2, which will be Cure versus Bomber for the TBT.
Yeah.
And if I was ever sure about one of my predictions, this would be the one. Cure dominant in the past in TBT, nearly beating Innovation in that series in Heartless Swarm. I always talk about when no one was touching Innovation. He almost beat him.
Yep.
And
no, Cure's a fantastic player. He's just not the most consistent, but he's got it in him, and that it shows when you get out of your round of round of 16 group over at GSL. I mean, this guy, he definitely has a chance.
And Bomber, on the other hand, is the opposite of consistent. And I guess he's even almost going backwards towards being consistent, except in that way that he's losing most of his games. He was one of the best players in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, a very solid Terran, dominant in some of the very first GSLs. But in the past few matches he's played in Pro League, and his lack of individual games because he hasn't made it in tournaments.
I think the game you're thinking of specifically was in the playoffs. I forget exactly who he played against, but he just came out and it was like a total stomp. He went for like this weird build, this proxy something, and it got totally scouted.
Versus Stats.
Yeah, against Stats. And Stats was just like, are you serious? And he just killed him. It was like one of the most one-sided games we've ever had.
Yeah,
so.
That was like not a playoff caliber level game. And Bomber, I always mention this game specifically, and if you haven't seen it, go look up Bomber versus Forte. Game where Forte all-ins Bomber, fails, does no damage, and then takes risks and outplays Bomber and out-micros Bomber and nearly comes back to take the win.
Yeah.
And he's like outplaying Bomber 40 supply down in the TVT and a lot of points in that game. And I feel like Bomber has it in him to recover from this slump that he's in. But until that happens, I can't lie to you guys and say, well, you know, anything could happen here, because I don't think so.
Bomber's really on point now. Like he's having a rough time these days, that is for sure. And, you know, it goes the other way. We were talking about Kerr. He's really on point. He's practicing with guys like Maru day in and day out for TVT. So it's hard to get that kind of great practice when you're someone like Bomber on this team.
Yeah. I mean, Alive is looking really solid right now. In fact, if it was Alive versus Cure, I'd actually give the edge to Alive in the TVT. But it's not, unfortunately. It's Bomber here. And